Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Ask North Arrow. With me as always is Casey, the founder and owner of North Arrow Endurance Coaching. And then also today we have Jen, who is our yoga instructor, and also she does stretching classes. So she's perfect for today because the question is, what are good stretches for runners? So we want to focus on we all know all the basic stretches that we've been doing since we were in middle school, but how do we do them properly so we can avoid injury when we're out running and even avoid injury while we are stretching?
So I don't think it's any surprise that runners are terrible at stretching. I'd like to say I'd like to say that I'm above that, but I'm not. I like to wait until I'm so twisted in a knot.
Super sore.
That you could bag me up like a pretzel. I'm trying to be better about it, but that's where you come in, as there's a couple of key areas I think about that runners really struggle with. A couple things would be the hips, so keeping the hips and the glutes not overly tight, which is going to help with things like IT band. Knee, when you have IT pain in your knee, that source of that is from having muscles tight in your glutes, and then it pulls that IT band tighter. And then things like the calves. So a lot of, when you get down into like plantar fasciitis and some of those foot issues that can be generated from a calf being overly tight all the time, having problems with your Achilles, that is, one of the main tendons, pulling all of that tight. And so I think a couple areas that would be good to focus on.
Okay, absolutely. I think for everybody and runners, especially, stretching the whole body is really important because you do use everything when you run.
Yeah.
But definitely focusing on the legs today from here down because that's what you use the most. So let's just go ahead and start with one thing at a time.
Okay.
What do you want to start with, Casey?
Why don't we start with the calves? It's pretty straightforward. Muscle stretch, set of muscles.
And with all these muscles, there's tons of different stretches you can do, but we'll just do one or two today, just ones that are nice and easy to do and that everybody at home can try.
Perfect.
So my favorite calf stretch personally is to go up against a wall. You can just go right over here. One foot in front, you're going to stretch the leg that's in back. So you're going to step it back, you're going to really plant that heel down, and then with almost all leg stretches, the position of your pelvis and your back is really important. So for this one, you want to square your hips all the way forward and kind of press forward here, keeping your back nice and straight. So if you round it out or if you kind of tuck your tailbone under, you're not going to feel that stretch nearly as much. You want to straighten the back, lean forward, really press the heel the whole time.
All right, so I'm going to step in front of you real quick. So when you do that again, Jen, you are stretching the back calf muscle here.
Right
so
here.
you're pushing your weight back into this heel.
Press the heel back, lengthen the leg out, and press the hip forward too. So if you let your hip open up like this, you're not going to feel it nearly as much.
So stay square,
forward,
and you're pushing your weight into the back leg there, and that's the calf that you're stretching, not the one that's up
Correct.
front.
The one in front's just stabilizing. We're
Cool.
stretching the one in back. Yep.
Nice and simple.
Nice and simple.
That's a good calf
Good
stretch.
stretch.
Yep. Let's say we wanted to stretch our calf from the ground, from a sitting position.
So from a sitting position to stretch the calf, I would say just a regular forward fold is going to be your best bet. You'll get the hamstrings and the calves. So again, when I was talking about with the pelvis being important, it's really important in your forward fold. So you don't want to I'm going to turn this. You don't want to let your spine round out like this and reach forward because you're not really doing a whole lot for the legs. You're just rounding here. You want to sit up nice and tall, roll your shoulders back, and you want to tilt the pelvis forward, like you're kind of lifting your tailbone up. You want to press forward with the chest and reach from there. And then the real part of getting into the calves here has to do with your feet. So when you're coming forward here, tilting the pelvis, you're getting your hamstrings. To get these calf muscles, you got to pull the toes back toward you. So far even that your heels might lift off the mat.
What if you can't reach your
What
toes?
if
That's a great question.
what if you're like
Levi?
Levi?
I brought this handy strap
okay.
for Levi. All right, so straps are a really,
For Levi.
really good tool. You don't have to have an actual strap either. You can use a t-shirt or a towel or just anything you have at home. But you want to wrap it around the balls of the feet, hold on to either side, and pull. And when you're doing that, you want to keep your shoulders back and again, press forward with the chest. And you want to make sure it's on the balls of the feet, not the heels, because you want to be pulling those toes back.
Makes sense.
Good.
Yeah, I can feel it.
Perfect.
I don't
That's
feel
what
like
we
I'm
want.
stretching much.
That's
but
the first time Levi stretched his calf in like 10 years.
And you can move your hands down further too. You get a little deeper stretch
Okay.
in there. Yeah.
All right, so what about stretching our hamstrings, our next major muscle group
Hamstrings,
for
there
runners?
are a lot of good stretches.
Okay.
So the one we just did, get your hamstrings as well. But let's go ahead and stand just for a
Okay.
second. There's some pretty good hamstring stretches here. So this is kind of one of those ones I think that we used to do in gym class, kind of putting your foot forward, coming forward here like this. So a couple things here with this one too. Front foot straight forward, that back foot you want a little bit of an angle, and you want your hips squared towards that front leg. So this is one where that makes a difference too. If your hips are open, you're not gonna feel it as much. Square the hips forward, keep the shoulders back, come straight forward here.
Oh, yeah.
You feel that? Right through the hamstring?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I've been doing this wrong for a long time.
And there's a similar one to this too. A lot of people do this one, kind of bend that back leg, and you can pull that toe up, and then that's gonna get the calf and the hamstring also. You feel that?
I did until I almost tipped over.
While we're already standing, so we don't do a whole bunch of up and down, IT band.
Yeah,
Wanna
let's.
do that one
Yeah,
while we
that'd
stand?
be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so my favorite IT band stretch, nice and simple. You just cross the foot over. What we're stretching is the one in back. Okay, so there you got kind of even weight on both feet, and we're just gonna come forward. Do you feel that in the back leg?
Oh, yeah.
All the way down that outside
Yep.
there. Yep. And
And you're
obviously you
keeping
can
your back
do that on
straight,
either
right?
side. I do, again, with the tilting the pelvis, if you lift your tailbone up, you'll feel a deeper stretch.
Oh, yeah.
The tilt to the pelvis makes a big difference with most of these.
Yeah, so body position is really important.
Body position is very important.
I remember the other day Levi and I were overstretching after a run, and one of the other yoga instructors walked by and he was like, you know, if you tilt your foot while you're doing that, you'll actually get the real stretch. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
thanks, I was doing it all wrong.
Awesome.
So yeah, so
Yeah,
like you
it's
just
the
said with
little
that,
things,
when I
little
tilted
things.
my hip, I really
Yep.
felt the difference right there.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. While we're sitting into quads are good. Super simple stretch. Just lifting up here, holding onto your foot. Obviously, do
classic.
this against a wall. This is the classic quad
classic.
stretch. Couple little things about this one too, though. I see a lot of people. I'm just gonna use this real quick too. I see a lot of people kind of like leaning up against a wall, doing this thing. You will get a much better stretch if you stand up. This is all connected up through here. So if you stand up nice and tall, you're gonna feel a much longer stretch through here. People too really focus on bringing your heel to your bottom, which is important. But where that knee is aimed, if you've got your knee out in front here, you're not gonna feel it nearly as much as if you bring it back. So bring
Oh,
it
yeah.
back a little bit further too.
I've been doing all these wrong. Every single one of them.
Just little things.
Wow.
Little minor things that
Yep.
make a difference.
Yeah, I noticed with that stretch, like if I pick my foot up and I'm holding it, I feel like I'm stretching my quad, but if I tip my
Yes.
hips forward
Yep.
a little bit and point that knee down a little bit more, I can feel it stretch way
Yep.
way up
through the hip
further,
flexor.
up into
Yep.
the up in the hip
Yeah, the
flexor.
further you bring that foot back, the more into the hip flexor.
Yeah.
Hip flexors are pretty important too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one thing to keep in mind with any of these stretches is that we all have different bodies and they all function a little bit differently. And over time of being super tight or being more loose, each one of these stretches you should experiment with the exact kind of position
Yes.
that is helping you stretch more or less. So there isn't necessarily a 100% right or wrong way to do them. Certainly bending over and doing this is wrong.
No,
But
yeah, it's not gonna hurt you. You're just not getting as deep of
But
a
you're not-
stretch. So
yeah.
if you're really tight, maybe that's as much of a stretch as you need.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So you might not be able to do some of these exactly the way that you're watching, I'd say us, but Jen perform them. So you might need something to hold on
Wall's
to for
great
support.
balance. Yep.
That's why I said you might need to stretch your calves on the ground
Yep.
instead of against the wall. So make sure you adapt them for you. So.
Yep, absolutely.
Do you wanna, when you're stretching, do you wanna feel like that little bit of pain, like you're really getting a stretch, or do you wanna just, that's a
You
good
do.
thing?
I mean, pain's a dangerous word. You don't want it to be sharp. You don't want to feel
Uncomfortable.
like hot, but yeah, you want
Okay,
discomfort.
okay.
Yeah,
Alright.
you want to be feeling it, like,
Okay.
oh, that's a little rough.
Yeah.
You want to feel that.
Cause then
for
you
sure.
know you're.
It's kind of like during a good run when it hurts just enough
Yes.
and you're like, this is
Yeah,
good.
so
All
you
right.
don't want to feel like you're gonna die at the end of the run, but you want to be like, oh yeah, that was a good workout.
All right. So I think we're on to the hips.
Hips.
We've covered
Yes,
calves, quads,
yes.
hamstrings, IT
So,
stretch, hips.
Before hip openers, let's talk real quick about hip flexors. So we just kind of
Sure.
touched on that
We
with the
did, yep.
quad stretch. Another really good one for hip flexors is a lunge.
Yeah.
Just a regular lunge coming forward. You can use props here. You can use a chair or a block or something to rest your hands on if you need a little more stability here. But if you can get your hands down here and really straighten out that back leg, you'll feel a nice deep stretch all through here. To really get into that hip flexor though, I recommend bringing the knee down. Again, you can use padding underneath there if you've got bad knees or if that's sore. And then to even lengthen it out further, if you come up, you'll feel more length come up through there.
Oh yeah,
Okay,
big
so kind
time.
of pressing those hips at an angle forward, getting into that.
There's gonna be some
Good.
great footage of me during this one.
Well, yeah, we
Yeah, so
feel
I
that,
think
right?
about,
Like, this
right,
is good
yeah,
right
so
here.
I think
Yeah.
about, I mean, runner or triathlete, cyclist, these hip flexors get used a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's probably the first time I've actively tried to engage it and stretch it ever.
So this is a good class.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
this is, that's a good, I really feel that's a really good
Good.
stretch. Yeah, that's good.
Good, perfect. Little bit more into the hips. This is a super simple stretch, but this is one of my favorites. So just sitting cross-legged, and instead of tucking that front leg in, we're gonna scooch it out a little bit. So you want it maybe, and everyone's different, but maybe 6-12 inches in front of you here. Just holding on to the knees. You're just gonna press your chest forward. Kind of pull those shoulders back. You can use your hands on the knees to pull forward and kind of press into it. Do you feel that?
Yeah.
And you can adjust this front foot. You can move it forward, move it back, see where you feel that stretch the best, but you should be feeling that in the hip of the foot that's in front.
That's wonderful.
Good. Yeah, and it's super simple.
Yeah,
There's
this is so simple. It feels
nothing
good.
crazy
Yeah.
to it or anything, yep. And then similar to this, one of my other favorites for the hips, and this really, for me at least, gets into the low back as well, putting these feet together. So you'll see a lot of people stretching like this, putting your feet in close, and that gets the inner thighs and stuff, but to really get into the hips, you actually want to move them out. So you got kind of this wide diamond shape here.
Mm-hmm.
You can hold on for some leverage, and again, start to pull yourself forward. And for this one, you can keep your back straight, you kind of press open here to feel it in the hips, but to feel it in the low back as well, I like to kind of bring my arms forward and let the spine just round out, let your head drop. You can hold on to the feet and kind of pull yourself in a little bit more, but that should feel good on the back and the hips.
That's a good one for our triathletes out there, that
Yeah.
time trial position on a bike.
Yes,
A lot of time
yes.
spent
It's all tight.
supporting,
Yeah.
supporting your body on the front end right there. So that's
Yeah.
that's a good one.
Good.
Yeah. What about, so these have all been really good basic stretches.
Yep.
So what if we've got somebody that's, you know, a little bit more
A
advanced?
little bit more advanced stretches.
Yeah, that would
Um,
like to, you know, get more of, say, like a good, probably the thing I see people complain the most about is like all of the muscles in the glutes and the hips just
Mhm.
becoming tight and then everything from there down.
Sure. Yeah.
And so like maybe a more advanced hip
Sure.
stretch.
So pigeon pose in yoga is a really good hip stretch. For some people it might not be ideal because it does involve a little bit deeper stretching. But for pigeon pose, so I'm gonna turn both ways. I'll demo it both ways. But for pigeon pose, this front foot here can adjust in or out. The further you get it away from you, the deeper of a hip opener it is.
Okay.
The closer you bring it in, it's a little bit less intense. You don't ever want it so close that it's underneath you. It should always be a little bit out to the side here. And you want to stay right in the middle, okay? So you don't want to like lean over to the side of the hip. You want to be right in the middle here. You adjust into it through the back leg, scooching the back leg back to get deeper into the stretch. And then you can use it for kind of two different things. So if you come forward, you'll really feel it more in the hip. But if you bring it up,
And you're talking
you're
about
gonna-
the hip of the leg that's forward.
yes, the hip of the leg that's forward. You're gonna feel that if you come forward here, deeper into the hip. If you bring your torso up, this is that hip flexor right here.
Okay.
If you really want to get into a quad stretch here, you can reach back, pull your foot up. Now you're getting the hip flexor, and the quad.
Yeah, I'll never do
Yeah.
that.
But it's not like one of the super simple ones. So.
Yeah.
That's called the pigeon
The
Yeah.
pigeon pose.
Pigeon pose, yeah. Yeah.
That looked very advanced.
That
You
looked
didn't
advanced.
want to try that one with me, Levi?
No.
I like that though, as you get moving, it's a good pose in terms of it's opening up the hip,
Yeah,
and then you're also getting that hip flexor.
yeah.
So you're getting some of those internal hip muscles and
Yes.
some of the outer hip
Yeah.
muscles, which is really nice. So
I would say if we have time for one more
yeah,
stretch, one of my other favorite ones too is a twist. I think twists are really good for your spine, especially after you've been running like that. Two different twists that I really like to do. One of them seated. You just cross the leg over. Elbow comes to the outside of your knee, hand behind you. You always want to sit up tall. You don't want to round because then you're not really
Yep.
twisting safely through the spine. You want to sit up, just kind of opening the chest because then you're getting that glute, all the side of the thigh and everything, and the back
pretty
at the same
classic. I
time.
mean, that's a pretty
classic, yeah.
stretch.
You just want to make sure. My biggest tip to people always is sitting up nice and straight.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much universally in anything we do,
Yes.
Good
even
posture.
all the
Good
way to
posture
sitting in a
support.
chair, you know,
For
feet
sure.
planted on the ground,
Yeah.
get your back, you know what I mean, engage your
Yeah.
core and get your back up. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then that one can be done laying down too, a version of it laying down. If you come all the way down to the floor, you cross that knee over. Big tip with this one is you want to keep your shoulder planted. So for most people, it's the shoulder or the knee, one or the other. So
Yeah.
keep that shoulder and then just let the knee come as far as it'll go.
Yeah.
When I
Probably
do-
for most people, you'll get a better stretch sitting up on that one because you're going to tip around so much.
Well, I guess I have one last question is,
Yeah.
to lead up to stretching, should we be warming up at all to stretch, or can you stretch cold, or do you have an
I-
opinion on that? I know.
Yeah, it's kind of like the chicken or the egg. You warm up first, you do your stretch first.
Sure.
So in terms of your actual big run, I would stretch a little bit first.
Okay.
Do the big workout and then a much deeper stretch at the end when your muscles are
Afterwards.
warm and loose. And yeah, you're gonna get a deeper stretch anytime your muscles are warm
Right.
Yeah.
than when they're loose.
Generally, what you look at pre-run, you should generally be doing more of a dynamic type run. So you're up on your feet and maybe you're doing like butt kicks or high knees or
Yeah.
something like that where you're actively engaging and moving the muscles.
Yeah.
And then afterwards doing more what we're doing now where you're not,
Yes.
where you're really putting time into stretching them
Right.
back out
Yeah.
when your blood flow is better.
Yeah. If you're not running that day, if you're taking a rest day or relaxing and you're just gonna focus on stretching, like I teach a class, it's a half hour just stretching straight. If you're gonna do that, I'd warm up first.
Yeah.
Just walking some laps, jumping jacks, whatever, just get blood flow going
Right.
a little bit.
One thing I would add to this, if you are going to be new to stretching, hydration is always really important. But just like when you go get like an adjustment or you get a massage or something where you're working the muscles in a way that you're not used to working them, I would increase that water intake because this will be like Jen was just saying. I mean, you really could have a 20 or 30 minute stretching session that in and of itself is a workout. So.
Yeah, especially if your body's not used to it.
Especially if your body's not used to it. So as you get into some of these deeper stretches, I would increase your hydration. It's just going to help your muscles recover a little bit better. And then what I would recommend is when you're sitting in front of the TV. Like I'm sure,
Yes.
I'm not saying everybody
Yes.
does, but I'm sure a lot of people spend a little bit of time at the end of the day letting your brain unwind and watching a little bit of TV, or if you're just having a conversation with your significant other or something at home, it's a great time to just plop yourself on the floor and do just a couple of these stretches. And you'd be really surprised what a routine of doing it before you're having an issue will just make everything else feel so much better.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, Casey. A lot of people have told me, oh, I don't have time to stretch, or I forget to stretch. And I do exactly what you were just saying. I just stretch during the day, during my daily routine.
Yeah.
Just as you're going along, just doing
Really,
little
if
bits
you,
of stretches here and there.
yeah, I mean, if you have a job where you are sitting most of the day, a couple of these stretches could be incorporated right at a cubicle. You could stand up and stretch your quads. You could, do a calf stretch against the wall, something like that a few times a day to just keep the muscles from just kind of basically what they want to do is shorten and stick in that state.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, any of these, you're probably going to get some weird looks if you're doing a pigeon pose in the middle of the office, but got to keep those hips flexible for marathon season. So I say go for it.
And take a picture and send it
Take
to
a
Casey.
picture and send it to me, and you'll be featured as another crazy stretcher. So, yeah, I think that gives us a good foundation. As Jen was saying before we even started this video, we could do stretches for hours and hours. There's so many good stretches. But this gets you started. They're basic, but effective.
Yes.
Cool. Well, thanks, Jen, for coming in. And if you have any more questions, submit them to asknortharrow@gmail.com. Thanks. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.